Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons, and news writer for Sports Illustrated.
All right, Blake. So another week of the offseason. Do we have to talk about that Lions game? I mean, I don't really want to, but do we have to?
We definitely don't. No, I mean, it made me. So we're recording on Friday. The Packers played again last night on Thursday against the Commanders and looked equally as dominant. So that made me feel a little better about the Lions loss. Like the Packers might just be a buzzsaw, which stinks, but might make it less bad for the Lions.
See, this is one of those, every now and then on this podcast, we bring up other Detroit sports when there's a lot of success going on. And then it almost makes me feel obligated, like we got to shout out when something bad happens. But I just don't. Let's just move on. Let's just forget it happened and let's talk some basketball, right?
Yeah, let's do it until Sunday, I guess, where we'll get our Lions questions answered.
And actually, so I just realized, funny mistake on my part. I don't have my mic out, so I'm going to throw this over to you once I introduce our subject here for what we're going to do first. I'm going to exit the room, and then I'm going to come back in with the correct microphone. So hopefully my audio isn't too bad.
The audio actually sounds good. So
all right, I'll take it. So that's my bad, guys. I was just so excited, to talk some ceilings and floors again this week, because last week we did some of the bigger names, right? We went from Cade, we did Ivy, we looked at Jalen Duren as well, Sar Thompson. Honestly, it just went really well. It's kind of a fun conversation, right? So we figured let's keep the list going. So we're going to look over Ron Holland, Isaiah Stewart, Karis LeVert, Duncan Robinson, and Chaz Lanier. And guys, of course, if you are in our live room with us, go ahead, get your questions into the live chat for us. Add your thoughts, right? If you've got a ceiling and floor prediction as well for these guys, throw those into the chat. We'll be pulling up all of those up onto the screen here for you guys all to see. So with that, I'm going to throw it to you, Blake. Ron Holland, what do you think here is let's start with the floor. What's the floor actually for Ron Holland?
All right, so let's just start with Ron Holland's rookie season. 6.4 points a game, 2.7 rebounds, 1 assist, just under 1 stock per game. So, and also that's in just above 15 minutes. He would have played in all 82 games in his rookie year if it weren't for that one suspension. So he missed joining Malik Beasley on the Pistons with that 82 game club, but it was basically like, give it to Ron Holland. He wasn't hurt or anything. He was an Iron Man. So I will floor. I only see Ron Holland's role really increasing with this team. So I don't see his floor any worse than what he did over his rookie season. I think he's only going to get more opportunities. He only started in 2 games in his rookie year. I think we'll see that go up, whether it's like spot starts, injuries, matchup, what have you. So I can see him getting right up around 20 minutes a game this year. And with that, I can't really see him averaging less than let's say 8, 3, and 1.5 assists, and hopefully he gets up to that one stock a game threshold.
Yeah, I could see it. So, I mean, for more context, right, last year he's 6.4 points, 2.7 rebounds, and 1 assist. The field goal 3-point percentage, that's stuff to work on, right? He was under 50% from the floor. He was at 24-ish% from 3, 75 from the line, which is pretty good. I'm with you, though. I think he's going to get more minutes this season. If I could find it, hopefully, here quickly. Yeah, so last year, 15.6. Yeah, 15.6. So I'm with you. I could see that getting up to 20. I think he's going to have a pretty important role. In fact, I really think that the team, at least the way it's structured right now, they're relying on both him and Asar to some extent to help out with that backup 4 position, because it just doesn't really look like they've got the bodies there right now. So in terms of a floor, right, if you just take basically what he did last year and you increase the volume, increase the minute load, 7 to 8 points seems reasonable. The thing is, I think he's a better finisher than he showed last year. I think especially early on, some of the speed of the closeouts that he was dealing with around the rim kind of threw him for a loop, and we saw his finishing look very improved, I thought, in summer league. Not perfect. He still blew a couple of layups, but better than it was before. And this wasn't a situation like the Jaden Ivey issue where like he's just going way too fast and you need him to slow down so that he's got the control to actually make the layup. Like for Ron, you can see that the touch was there, the technique was there. It was more just honestly, sometimes I think the footwork around the rim, and that's something he can improve. So all this is to say, I think even as a floor, he's getting up over 50% from the field just in general. So I might go a little higher than you. As a floor, I might say I would say 9 points, 4 rebounds, and an assist and a half. And we're looking at maybe 52% from the floor, and I want to say maybe 28% from the three. I think, I know that that's all improvement across the board. And actually, a lot of people, you guys would be, if you guys are listening and you're thinking, wow, I'd be happy with that in general for Ron Holland. I don't disagree. I'm with YouTube user here. I'm really high on Ron Holland this year. I think he can be a really impactful player. And, I think even as a floor, you're looking at a guy that's really going to take a step this year. That's where my head's at anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, if we want to go right into ceiling with him, my immediate thought was, and it might be cheating a bit, but almost using Asar Thompson's last season as an example, not for everywhere, but Asar just averaged just over 10 points a game in the 59 games he played last year. I think Ron Holland's ceiling is even above that because of what you just mentioned, Wes, and YouTube user as well. I think Ron has much more of a scoring upside than Asar does. I don't think we'll see the full extent of that this year, partly due to it's just year two, partly due to the opportunities he'll get. But for a ceiling, I could see him somewhere in that 12, 13 points a game range. Asar is a better rebounder than him a little bit, but Ron can certainly get rebounds. So I'd say it'd be somewhere 4.5 rebounds per game. The turnovers and everything, decision making is still going to be something that he develops. So I don't think you're going to see a massive jump in his assist numbers. I think really a max of 3 per game, really. And I don't think the Pistons want him in that lead playmaker or on ball role a ton. So I don't think that's a big deal, really. And then in terms of shooting wise, unfortunately, I don't see his 3-point percentage taking a massive leap. But that said, I think he has more potential to have a greater year over year turn than Asar Thompson does, for example. And that's not saying a lot in all fairness to Asar, but Ron just shot just under 24% from 3 last year. I mean, I feel like you got to get above 30. I think a very aggressive ceiling, honestly, would be 35, right around that league average number.
All right. And instead of me just coming right out and giving what I think is the ceiling here, let me ask you, Blake, and maybe this will just show everybody how way too high on Holland's future and even this season I am coming into the year. But if I told you right around January, Ron Holland takes over Tobias Harris's starting spot, what does he have to be averaging to not have it be a conversation in January? Takes over just before the All-Star break.
So are you saying just performance based? We're not talking Tobias Harris trade or anything like that?
Correct.
14, 5 and 3 while shooting right around 35% from 3.
See,
I'd
let me
say.
throw another stat at you too, a steal and a half, because I think that's on the
Okay.
table too. That is exactly where I was going to go. I was going to go exactly with what you said. It was 14, 5, and 3, right?
And just so
That's
we're
off the
clear, that's
bench at
like,
that point too.
yeah, and that's like pretty aligned with that basically is what Tobias
Per
Harris did
36.
last
Oh, it's
year.
also really close to what he did per 36 last season too. Sorry, I thought you were going to go a different direction with that. So if you've got Harris's up, I'll have you read that off next. But per 36 minutes last year, Ron Holland, 14.8 points, 6 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 1.4 stocks, and a half a block in 36 minutes. So that's taking his regular stat line and then averaging it out over to 36 minutes instead of the 15 that he played. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, and what Harris averaged per game was 13.7 points, 5.9 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 1 steal, zero point 0.8 blocks, and he shot 34.5% from 3 on just over 3.5 attempts per game.
Yeah. I genuinely, I know it's kind of out there, but we're talking about a ceiling. And I think that there's a world where just on performance alone, Ron Holland forces their hand a little bit this year. And I could see it as early as January. He's got so much talent. The kid, he's so athletic. The shot looked really good in summer league. So I think getting up over 33, 34% is maybe not like reasonable in that you should expect it, but reasonable in that it's an achievable goal if he really turns it up a notch this season. And then with the kind of scoring hole that got left off the bench now without Malik Beasley, they're bringing back guys instead with LeVert and with Duncan Robinson that aren't that type of scorer that Beasley really was. So I think that there's even going to be shots available for Ron to take control of if he wants to be assertive. So obviously it's up to him, right? But I think in terms of his ceiling, if you're looking at a guy off the bench getting up near 14 points per game, 5 rebounds, few assists, and over a steal per game on pretty good efficiency, even if Tobias is doing what he did last year, you got to defer a little bit with that. I mean, don't you like the disruption that Holland and Thompson could cause together out starting at the forward positions could be insane if that 3-point percentage is negligible. And if he's scoring better off the bench than Harris is in the starting lineup, I think it could happen. So there's my ceiling. Maybe it's too pie in the sky, but I think it's in the cards, even if it's unlikely.
Well, I think, and this is a completely different conversation for another day, but if that happens, does Tobias Harris become like, we know how big he is for this team and everything he does on the floor, as well as just the vet he is in the locker room for these guys. But does he become a bit more expendable? Because again, taking all like the personal side out of it, his contract doesn't have any value to the Pistons after this season. So do they use, and it fully depends on where the team is going into the trade deadline. Like if they are in a top 6 position, I honestly think you just probably keep him unless you can go out and use his contract to get a player that will help you now and in the future. Like if the backup point guard role is a problem, if you need to go and get another knockdown shooter, we don't know what's going to happen with Malik Beasley, but Tobias's contract, I think, is going to have value across the league just because it's a lot of money and it's expiring. And again, it might not make sense for the Pistons to trade him during the season, but it also very well could, especially if Ron Holland is going to take a decent chunk of his minutes potentially.
Yeah, I think two things are true, right? Like the contract number is very movable, and it's not only very movable, but it's very stackable for Tobias Harris. Like you could get a pretty solid player in exchange for right around, I believe about close to $30 million would be the most you could take back in a 1-for-1 exchange with Tobias. But you could also add in a guy like LeVert or Robinson. You can get up over that 40 number pretty quick if you want to go star hunting. So that's definitely on the table. The other side of this is if Ron Holland's playing so well that it forces your hand and you have to start him over Tobias, it almost makes more sense with the way that the roster is constructed, because right now you've got a kind of a 3-4 combo guy in Asar Thompson that's looking like he's staggering minutes there at the backup 4 spot along with Holland as well. But if you had both of your flexible forwards starting, it lets you use Tobias like a little bit more of a rotation chess piece off the bench, and that could actually work out really well. So all this, like I could see the argument for really wanting to keep Tobias, not just for the veteran presence and for the leadership in the locker room, but him off the bench could also be a weapon for this team if Holland is playing well enough to make that a reality. If he's not, then you forget all of this. I think he's a solid starter in this league for upwards of 30 minutes a night. But if you could have a guy who could do that coming off your bench, that's a luxury too, and that would be really helpful to this team long term as well.
Yeah, and I think if, say, there is a stage where Ron Holland enters the starting lineup, I think you have to have the shooting conversation, because we know he's had a questionable rookie year, looked better in summer league. We don't know what it's going to be this upcoming season, but if you have him out there next to Asar and Jalen Duren, and then what are you going to start? Cade and Ivy or LeVert or Robinson instead of Ivy? Like, do you not want to start Jaden Ivey? So I think that might be the battle, or what holds the Pistons from potentially making that change. But again, he could make it really easy for them if he turns into the scorer we think he can be sooner than expected.
All right, Blake, you just brought up the idea of a stretch big, a big who can shoot. So let's talk about the ceiling and floor of the theoretical stretch big the Pistons have on the roster, right? Isaiah Stewart, 2 seasons ago, he was getting up quite a few 3-pointers per game. Last season, not so much. So last year, 6 points, 5.5 rebounds, 1.7 assists. He shot 56% from the floor, 32% from 3. And just to get a sense of that drop off there, so last year, it was less than 1 attempt per game, though he did shoot fairly well for a big 32%. The season before, though, he shot 38% on 3.8 attempts per night. So what is your ceiling this year for Isaiah Stewart?
Oh, man, ceiling. I mean, seeing how JB used Stewart in his first season as head coach, I don't think it'll change drastically, but again, I think you're gonna, like, Isaiah Stewart averaged less than 1 3-point attempt per game last year. I think you're gonna see that go up. Like you said, he averaged just under 4 the season before. He averaged just over 4 the season before that, and hit at a pretty decent overall 3-point percentage, especially in the season before last. Like you just mentioned. So overall, I think he could have I don't think he's ever going to be a huge part of the offense, which is okay, because we know everything he brings as a defender, as a rebounder, as an energy guy, everything like that. But I think even if he gets 1.5 to 2 3-point attempts per game, I think that's a really easy way to see his scoring numbers go up. Again, he's not going to hit all of those, but I think he could definitely get to where he was the season before last. So in terms of ceiling, and by the way, that 2 seasons ago, he averaged just under 11 points a game. To use that for comparison, he did that in just over 30 minutes a game. But if he's still in the same role, coming off the bench, he got just under 20 minutes a game last year. I think we'll see that go up a bit. And if that's the case and he's taking a bit more threes, I could see it going up to like 10 a game, 7 rebounds. And I mean, his assist numbers, I don't think we need to go into that much. He was at 1.7 last year. So right around there, somewhere between 1.5 to 2.
So here's what I'll say for Isaiah Stewart. I think that there's some context stuff with this roster that kind of goes his way and would maybe lead to him having a larger statistical output than he had last year. So I think if looking down the barrel of 82 games of Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren starting next to Ivy and Tobias Harris, I think that alone starts to push up or increase the level of importance of a guy like Isaiah Stewart refinding that jump shot that he had 2 years ago. I would be personally a little shocked if we don't see that number get up close to 1.5 a night. The other thing that I'd honestly kind of pull out as a ceiling number, as weird as this sounds, I think his ceiling is about 24 minutes per game. Like, I know that sounds weird, but Isaiah Stewart is consistent as they come, right? We know that Isaiah Stewart's going to give you a good number of blocks per game for the minutes that he's getting. Last year was at 1.4. That's a great number. I think he's consistent with that. You know he's going to be solid on the boards, and you know he's not going to take a lot of shots, but the ones that he does, it's somewhere between 55 and 60% from the floor. And if he can add that 3-point jump shot, then, we're golden. So there's really nothing up in the air to me with Isaiah Stewart. The only thing that I think could get him a ceiling type outcome in my book is if he's legitimately splitting the minutes with Jalen Duren. And I almost think that that's the most likely outcome. I know that sounds weird to look at a guy like JD with the season he had last year and assume that he's going to improve, which I think we all agree he will, and then say he might get less minutes. He might actually end up splitting time with Isaiah Stewart. But, selfishly from a Pistons perspective, you've got 48 minutes of really good center play between those two. And if you could get Stewart up to that 24 minutes per game mark, and now that's alleviating maybe some floor spacing issues at the same time, as well as some rim protection issues, I think that's in the cards. So as weird as it is to say the stat I'm going to say for the ceiling of Isaiah Stewart this year is minutes per game, I'm sticking to it. I think 24 minutes per game, that's Isaiah Stewart's ceiling.
Well, even if it's less than that and his minutes are only coming at the expense of Jalen Duren, which isn't always going to be the case. Like,
that's true. It's a good point.
JD is still going to get his minutes, but Duren was at 26 minutes a game last year. Stewart just under 20. Just take 2 from Duren and add 2 for Stewart. Like, it's not incredibly different for both players. But I think Isaiah Stewart is definitely going to get more than 20 minutes per game this year as well. So if it comes from that, like, I don't think it's like a huge impact either, like towards Duren specifically.
It's just funny because, we're talking about this year still, and rightfully so, is still a bit of a learning year for the Pistons. We want to figure out if Ivy and Duren need extensions. We want to see how much better Asar Thompson's going to look. What do they have in Ron Holland? It's just kind of nice that, to me, that the only 2 sure things on this roster are core pieces that are locked up for quite some time, and that being Cade Cunningham and Isaiah Stewart. Like, I could not be more confident in those 2 players, and I hope that me saying minutes per game and then just like, yeah, what Isaiah Stewart can do in 24 minutes a night, that displays that level of confidence. But let's go to the floor. What do you think Isaiah Stewart's floor is this year?
All right. So I still, and this is the second player in a row, I know there's not that much scoring or like points per game to go around, but I just really don't think he's going to be averaging 6 points per game again. So with that, I'd say his floor would be somewhere around 7, 6, and 1.5 assists per game, which is just slight increases from what he did last year. And we think that will come from his getting at least some additional minutes. And if he gets some additional minutes, like those block numbers will certainly go up too. Like, he's going to get his blocks. He average 1.8 per 36. So I think if his minutes go up, you're going to see his block numbers at least increase somewhere in that range, like 1.5 per game, which is just above where he was last year.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. I was going to say, somewhere around 7 points, and then keeping the rebounds about the same. Call it 6, and then around 2 assists and over a block and a half because you figure he's getting more minutes. The thing with Stu is he's just never been a high volume offensive guy. He doesn't look for his shot. That was part of the issue last year with his floor spacing. He turned down quite a few looks. I know that correctly, to an extent, the narrative was, well, JB told him to stop pick and pop. That's correct. He stopped doing that. Absolutely true. But he's still got quite a few opportunities on just normal rotations or as a trail man that he passed up, he didn't take. And I think that's where it's going to change this year. So with Stu, it's not necessarily that he's going to take more shots to me. It's that maybe he's sacrificing one of his little post-up hook shots for one 3-point attempt, right? And then maybe on the average, that's getting him another half point or full point per game. That's kind of where I think that the floor is for Stu. Let's go here. This is a fun question here from Sports Times. It says, if you could only pick one player to have a guaranteed improved skill this season, who would it be and what would the skill be?
I hope picking a Cade Cunningham skill for this isn't cheating, but what sticks out to, and I think you could go a couple ways with this with Cade, but for me, what I'd choose is 3-point shooting consistency. Cade shot 35.6% from 3 last year on 6 attempts per game, about league average numbers, and on pretty decent volume. Like, that's the second highest on the team outside of Malik Beasley. So I think just if he could knock down those threes on a more consistent basis, like we saw him, I guess, just struggle to get it going offensively to start games and really turn it on in the second half. If he can find a way to knock down that shot more consistently, I think that would be huge for this team. It would alleviate some of the floor spacing concerns. Obviously, the player that we want to space the floor for is Cade Cunningham, but if he's getting some space himself and he can just pull up like we see a lot of the stars in this league do, and knock those down fairly consistently, I think that would be huge for his individual development as well as just the future of this team this season and moving forward. So there's not really, I guess, a number you can put behind that, but if we see Cade's 3-point percentage go up a little bit, I think that will genuinely be huge for this group moving forward.
I think I'm going to stay in the backcourt. I'm going to look at Jaden Ivey, and I want his field goal percentage basically at the rim, and then in that 3 to 10 feet range. Right, I want that to go up. So from 3 to 10 feet, he was at about 43%, and then last year it was pretty good, but right at the rim was pretty good. It was at 64, but he shot 52% on layup shot attempts, and that's too low. So I think if you could take a guy like Jaden Ivey, and if you could guarantee that his finishing improves, he goes from a player who has a career 43% from the floor to someone who can get close to or up and over 50%. Like, that's a guy who takes his 17 and a half points from last year and pushes it over 20. And not by a little bit either. Not like he's just at 20 points per game. If Jaden Ivey can be a high-level finisher around the rim, that's a guy who can be up at 21, 22, 23 if he gets enough volume. And to me, I think if they could definitively answer that number 2 scorer question this season, I don't really care who it is. Long term, we've talked before, Ron Holland might have a claim for that just with the way that he's wired. But if you could answer it right now, this year, with Jaden Ivey, that is a huge question that this team still has kind of hovering over it. And it's really in reach. It's a difficult thing to do. He's always been a guy that struggled a little bit with touch around the rim. I mean, Asar Thompson as well, and actually to an extent, Cade too. His finishing needs to improve too. So it's not like this is unique for Jaden, but touch and ability to kind of finesse a finish, that's a tough skill. So this isn't an easy thing. That's also part of it for me. A lot of times players don't make that type of improvement, or at least not very quickly. So if I could guarantee that, if I could fast track it and, boom, happens right away this year for sure, I think I'm taking that, and I'm really happy.
Yeah, and if that happens, it makes at least one of your extension questions pretty easy, honestly.
Yeah, it really does. If Jaden Ivey comes out and averages like 22 a night, then yeah, that's. I mean, on the downside, you probably lost money because you'd have to pay him more than the extension he likely would have signed this past offseason. But on the upside, you've got a second star. I mean, if he's putting up, if you just leave the rebounds and points at 4 and 4, and he's sitting at 22, 4 and 4, that's a borderline all-star. Like if you're clamoring for another star on this team, you just found it. It's right there. We got it at home. It's Jaden Ivey if he could finish around the rim. Can he do it? I don't know, but Sports Time says I can guarantee it. So that's where I'm going with it. Let's look at another ceiling and floor here. Let's do our 2 vets. All right. Caris LeVert. We'll start there. What is his ceiling, do you think, this year? And I'm going to pull up his stats for you as well in a second.
Yeah, I got it. So last year, Caris LeVert averaged 14.9 points a game, 3.7 rebounds, 2.9 assists. He shot 33.8% from 3. And sorry, those numbers I just read off were after he got traded to the Hawks. So overall on the season, he was 12.1 points per game, 3.2 rebounds, 3.4 assists, 37.3% from 3 on 4.4 attempts per game. I think this is going to be super role dependent, whether Caris LeVert starts in the starting lineup or it's Duncan Robinson or there's something else that we're not seeing. But I think when Caris is in the starting lineup, Cade and Ivy are going to get a lot of the looks, but I think Caris would definitely get a decent amount of those as well. So I think his ceiling could be 15 points a game. And I don't think he's going to be super different from his rebound assist numbers or anything. So I'm going to stick with the 3-point percentage because I think that's really what you need him to do. 40% on 4 attempts per game for me.
I was just going back through his career here on Basketball Reference, and what's actually now shocking to me, I didn't realize this, but he has not, since his rookie year, had a season averaging right around the amount of minutes played I expect him to average this year. Every year has been up closer to 30, or at least closer to 25. Even last season when he was with Cleveland for the first half of the year, he was at 24 per game. It's been in my head. I feel like he's somewhere near 20, so less than that. And I guess that's a limiter here for the type of ceiling I think he could have, because for me it's very close to what he did last year, the 12 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. I think he's splitting time between primarily the backup 2 and then a little bit of the 1 and a little bit of the 3. The thing with that, though, is his role changes quite a bit, right? Depending on where they're lining him up. And that inconsistency can be difficult at times, to have to be a chameleon and fill different roles, even sometimes during the same stint, if you're Karis LeVert. And this is all, again, in my expectation of the way that they're going to use him. So, like, yeah, I can't go that much higher than what he did last year. And I'd be really happy with that as his ceiling as well. I don't see the minute load to have him get up close to 15 like he did in Atlanta, which he looked great in Atlanta. You read off the stats. He looked awesome. That'd be obviously really great if they do. I just think it's coming at the expense of Ron.
By the way.
Yeah. Yeah. For most of his career, he's been bench, correct?
Yeah, other than like the
Brooklyn
seasons.
stint, but then other than that, yeah.
And especially the past few seasons, like his time in Cleveland, and then the time he spent in Atlanta last year. So, I think he'll get somewhere around 20 a game. And I think he is that good of scorer, and he will get his opportunities. It's like sort of similar to the questions that we asked about Tobias when the Pistons signed him last year. Like, is there a drop off coming? Are there younger players that are going to take more of those minutes away from him? But yeah, I think he is like that good of a scorer, where I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, although probably unlikely.
He's got the talent, man, for sure. I really like LeVert. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife of a player offensively, and he's a much better defender than I feel like he gets credit for. Like last year, being able to average close to 47% from the floor and 37% from three. Like, that's just he really can't do it all. You can have him handle the ball. You can have him be a primary scorer off the bench. He can shoot it off the catch. Don't have him shoot it off the move or off the dribble, but he can shoot it off the catch. He's a really talented guy. So with all that said, where do you have his kind of floor outcome here for this season?
Yeah, so let's say he dips below 20 minutes a game coming off the bench. And that's similar. It's like less minutes, but it is pretty similar to the role he had in Cleveland. And when he played with Cleveland last year, he averaged 10 points a game, 3.7 assists, 2.8 rebounds, shot just over 40% from three on 4 points a game. The season before that, he had more minutes, but averaged 14 points a game and shot a little bit worse from three on higher volume. So I think it would honestly be somewhere around those Cleveland numbers from last season. And if that was on 24 minutes a game, so if it is less than 20, like it could be somewhere like 9, 2, and 2 on. I think he'll still get 3-point attempts. So maybe he's shooting like 36, 37% from three on like 3 attempts per game.
Yeah, I was going somewhere similar because he's a consistent vet. He's been this guy throughout the majority of his career. I'm with you. I think he's down closer to like I said, I think he's in that 20 minutes per game range. So with that, the thing for me, I think that the efficiency stays. So he's kind of yo-yoed these past couple of seasons, especially from three. Last year, overall, it was 37. The year before that, 32. And then the year before that was 39. Right. So he's kind of gone up and down with that. And it's been, for the most part, improving throughout his career. He's got some stretches with particular teams where it's better than in other teams. And that was true last year as well, 40 in Cleveland, 33 in Atlanta. But I kind of, it's unusual for the 3-point percentage to yo-yo like that. I just think that he's maybe found something on the efficiency side of things here. So I'm just going to stick with 10 points. let's say 10 points, 3 assists, and 2 rebounds. I could see that as his floor. So not a lot of a spread, not a lot of a range. Still a guy you're really happy to have off the bench. But I guess I just don't see the ceiling so much for him as much as I see a very high floor for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And it makes sense. And I think it's like worth it. Obviously, the Pistons had to pivot last minute with everything that happened with Malik Beasley. And I don't think Karis LeVert or even Duncan Robinson, who we'll talk about in a second for that matter, will come in and get all the attempts that Malik Beasley did. But they're both at Duncan to a greater degree are worthy of it, have been great shooters at points and pretty good ones at other points throughout their career. And they're also going to be sometimes playing next to one of the greatest playmakers in the Eastern Conference in Cade Cunningham. And we saw what Cade did for Malik Beasley last year. So I don't think it's out of the realm that either of those players could see a bump in just their scoring overall, their efficiency from three, and everything like that. I'll throw it over to you unless you have anything before we talk about Duncan.
I don't, but our guy Caleb Lanou here from our live chat does. So he asks, out of all the young guys the Pistons have on the roster who have not yet had a breakout season, which players do you predict to break out this year? So who are you most confident in if you had to pick from, reasonably, let's say Ivy, Asar, Ron Holland, Jalen Duren, right? Am I missing anybody?
No, I think that's it.
All right. So out of those 4 guys, who are you most confident will have a breakout year? And then just for fun, what does that breakout look like?
Yeah.
In other words, who hits their ceiling that we've talked about already?
Yeah, I think it's Asar for me. He had he had a good season when he came back last year, but a funky one starting out. And we know the health issues he was dealing with during his rookie season and impacted his first off season. I just think having a full off season of him, he seems the most prime for a breakout heading into year 3. And I mean, Jaden Ivey is the other worthy candidate for me too. He looked good when he was out there last year. Don't have a ton of sample size in that last season after he went down, but Asar overall, and I think that breakout will definitely look different for Asar than it does for Jaden Ivey. Like we talked about last week, his stock numbers will probably look insane if he truly breaks out because he's that good of a defensive player and makes an impact, and he's that much of an athlete. He definitely doesn't have the scoring ceiling that Jaden Ivey does, but I still think he can get up there if the team works to find him the right looks, and he's better as a finisher. Still not confident he's ever going to develop into even like an average 3-point shooter. But he averaged 10 a game last year in just under 60 games. So like, I think that breakout is somewhere around 15 points a game, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and then 2 steals and a block. So like 3 stocks per game.
My mind went to the same 2 guys with Ivy and Asar. And I really think like, you got to define breakout, right? Because if it's breakout year in the traditional sense, like they're scoring a lot of points, they're getting a lot of national attention, they're maybe on a couple of all-star ballots, though maybe they probably don't make the team. Like I think to me that's Jaden Ivey. He's the closest to being in that kind of category as a scorer. So like it's honestly, it's low-hanging fruit to make that kind of prediction. Having a guy go from almost 18 points a game to maybe 21, like, yeah, it's a big jump, but it's within reach. You know what I mean? But in terms of, a non-traditional breakout year, I'm with you. I am really confident that Asar Thompson's going to come out and just be one of, if not the most impactful defender in the NBA. Like I think that that's the tier of player he gets to this year, where he's not only likely on all NBA first team defense, but like in the conversation, thoroughly in the conversation for defensive player of the year. Like 3 stocks per game, it could go over that. I could see 3.5, which would be nuts for the type of player he is. And he's not going to shoot the 3. I'm very confident in that. I hope he proves me wrong one of these days. I really hope he proves me wrong. But he's not. To me, he's not going to be a 3-point shooter. I know he's an incredible athlete, but he's not going to be an ISO guy. He struggles around the rim. We've talked about he needs to get the field goal percentage up. But the one thing that he can do extremely well at an elite level already, having only played really a season and a half of NBA basketball, is wing defense. And if we're counting a breakout season as a guy becomes candidate for defensive player of the year and maybe wins it, that's Asar Thompson to me. I'm very confident that that's the category he hits this year.
And even if he's not, like, let's say a big gets defensive player of the year, if Asar has this breakout that or ceiling that we're talking about, he could be most improved too. Like the breakout
Absolutely.
we're talking about is almost similar to what Dyson Daniels did in Atlanta last year. And that's a little different because he was traded in the offseason, different team context and everything. And he averaged 3 steals a game, which is insane. And we talked about this a bit when we were talking about Asar last week, but Daniels, his numbers last year were 14 points a game, 3 steals, 4.5 assists, 6 rebounds. He's a better 3-point shooter than Asar is, although he's not great either. So just maybe somewhere in that range outside of 3-point shooting. I also think Asar could potentially get more looks around the rim. So I don't think Asar not being that level of 3-point shooter will necessarily impact him fully as a scorer. But Dyson Daniels won the most improved player of the year and was in defensive player of the year conversation. So it's just like a very similar use case or like recent example to me.
Similar, but then you add in those blocks too, right? Because Asar is a much better athlete than Daniels is, and he's no slouch athletically. But like, man, you could have, this is insane, but you could have a guy averaging almost 2.5 assists and over a block and a half. Good Lord, right? And then if you got Jaden Ivey's been all right creating some steals. If Ron Holland can get up off the bench and be close to over a steal to maybe a steal and a half, we've seen him be disruptive. Like the future of disruptive Pistons defense with Isaiah Stewart getting you over a block and a half off the bench too. Like that's awesome. That is really awesome. So Caleb asked who we're most confident in. I'm really confident Asar Thompson can get there.
Yeah, and I think like Caleb brings it up too in the chat. I think Ron Holland is the other. Ron Holland's the other candidate, and Caleb thinks he could honestly have a bit of a breakout year. I think that's a possibility too. For me, I'm just like more confident in Asar, and like maybe I think it's coming for Ron. Maybe we're just a year away. I think year 3 is what you sort of look at, and that makes it tough for Jaden Ivey because he missed the great majority of his year 3 as well. So he's the other candidate. And just because we didn't talk about Jalen Duren, I don't think is a slight on him, but he was, I just statistically don't think he can do much more. Like last season, right around 12 points a game, 10 rebounds. Hopefully he gets up his block numbers and limits the turnovers. But if you're talking about breakout, I just think type of player, archetype, and position, it's like one of the other 3 guys.
Yeah, agreed. Let's do. All right, so let's get back to the ceilings and floors here. Let's go over to Duncan Robinson. So last year, Duncan Robinson, 11 points per game. He had 2.4 assists and 2.3 total rebounds. He shot 39% from three and about 44% from the floor. So where do you think the ceiling is here for Duncan Robinson in his first year in Detroit?
Yeah, and just for the record, like we're both going through basketball reference pages, and Karis LeVert's nickname on there is Baby Durant. In case that changes anything for your ceiling thoughts, that's a wild one.
Okay, so yeah, so like 30 points per game, right? I mean, if it that is a
That,
wild
that's
nickname.
a great one.
Where did he get that? That is oh my
A,
god.
a
All right.
sports reference
Don't look at
intern.
Duncan Robinson's. What's one of there are three nicknames for Duncan Robinson.
I already
Uh
know. I
oh, you
looked.
already
I
know.
mean, it's the Jimmy Neutron one is obvious, and that's just a great one.
There are two. There's Sheen. That is a
Yeah.
Jimmy Neutron reference as
Yep.
well. I mean, shout out to
Yep.
that show that I watched all the time as a kid. What the heck? These nicknames are hilarious. The Slam and Jam guys do like a trivia based off of basketball reference nicknames for players. They'll like list out three, and you got to pick the fake one. It's a riot. Oh
No,
my god. Anyway,
that's great because some of them are so random, but then like Dyson Daniels, Great Barrier Thief, like that's one of the
oh,
greatest
that's gold.
nicknames.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
gold.
and yeah, that's just perfect. But all right, sorry for derailing us. Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Neutron, Sheen. Ceiling wise, it's a tough one because he, outside of a couple seasons ago, he's always been, and his rookie year, he's been right around 25 minutes a game and even closer and above 30 in a couple seasons when he had a bigger role last year, 24 minutes a game. I don't think he's getting that. So I think it's almost you just scale his numbers to, let's say, around 20 minutes a game. But if you think about what this team is looking for in a Malik Beasley replacement, we don't know what's going to happen with that. Maybe he comes back, but that's over 9 3-point attempts per game that you're looking to spread out between Duncan and Karras, and maybe Ivy gets more, and Cade or what have you. But I think even in 20 minutes a game, like he can average right around 6 3-point attempts per game. Like you're going to want to get him moving around, and I guess just being that guy to space the floor for you. So ceiling wise, if that's the case, even in scaled down minutes, I could see him somewhere around 13, 2.5, 2.5, and then hopefully shooting right around like 39, 40% from three again, which we've seen over his career. He's more than capable of. We've never seen him play in a context outside of the Miami Heat, but I am optimistic that playing next to Cade Cunningham will only help him. So I just like can't really see much of a drop off efficiency wise, even if he is getting less minutes per game.
Agreed on the less minutes per game. So this is interesting too. I wanted to call this out. So last year, Malik Beasley, it was just a touch under 28 minutes a night. He averaged 9.3 3-point attempts per game. Duncan Robinson last year, 24 minutes per game, averaged 6.5. And I want to look at per 36 here just to make the point even more
That Duncan
clear.
Robinson per 36 is exactly 9.3 attempts per game.
Yeah.
For
And
36.
yeah, per 36. And Malik Beasley's per 36 attempts for three was 12. So my thought here is I don't think Duncan Robinson has ever in his career seen more easy and maybe wide open 3-point looks than he will see this season playing next to guys like Ivy, Cade, and to an extent, Karis LeVert as well. I think Duncan Robinson is going to be chucking up threes, even if he's only averaging, 18 to 22 minutes a night. So with that, what he did last year, maybe even a little more than, seems kind of reasonable, even if he's averaging less minutes, because you're 80% of his attempts coming from three. Is that ridiculous? Because I could see that.
I mean, he averaged nine field goal attempts last year, and 6.5 of those were from three. So
right, so you're looking at a bit over 70% there last season. I think that it could bump up to like 80. So like if he's sitting at 12 points and somewhere close to 39 to 40% from three, like I think that's the ceiling there for Duncan Robinson. It's all self-created. It's really good looks from a really good creator in Cade and a pretty good creator in Ivy. And the thing that's kind of fun with Robinson, he's got a little juice off the bounce. You don't want to rely on it too much, but he's a little Tim Hardaway Jr.-esque in that way, where if a guy really runs out at him, he can create a look for himself that's pretty dang good. And he got, I thought, quite a bit better, specifically last season, finishing around the rim with using some of his craft and his length. So I could see that if he's getting up a ridiculous amount of threes, and then the one or two other shots a night he's taking are pretty solid layup attempts, like 12 points a night as a ceiling there feels pretty good to me.
Yeah, and just back to what you said about it, like 80% of his attempts being from three, it's definitely realistic. If you go back to his career years in 2020 and then 2021, 8.3 attempts from three, 9.4 field goals in 2020, 8.5 to 10 the following season. So that's 85 right there.
Bingo,
he had a ton of minutes, so it's not going to be that high, but percentage wise, like it certainly can be. And it's just clear as day that that's what his role is going to be on this team. Again, like you can caveat that those seasons he was 25 and 26. He's 31 years old now. But overall, I think that's just the type of player he is. It's what this team wants him to do. It's what they need. So I think it's totally realistic.
And I think they need a guy who can play this role, right? Specifically, because Karis LeVert's a pretty good shooter. He's a good shooter off the catch, so he's a good outlet guy. But if you're looking at the starters or guys that are probably going to get high minutes with Cade, Jaden Ivey, it's promising his numbers off the catch. You want him to continue what he did last year, but it's not like Tobias Harris is really a sniper on catch and shoot looks, right? It's not like we know Asar isn't. We know that Ron Holland won't be. We know Isaiah Stewart's really not going to be a guy that's going to hit too many kickouts because he's not going to be a guy that's getting kicked out to all that often. If there's a drive, it's more likely he's somewhere near the dunker spot or sitting at the elbow. So you just don't have a ton of players right now on this roster that can really, really eat off of kickouts. And I think Robinson, even if he's not getting a ton of design looks for himself, which I still think that he might, like all of those plays they ran for Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik, no one else on the roster can really do them right now unless Jaden Ivey can show us something that he's not shown before. So it's all going to go to Duncan Robinson. Point is, he's gonna really be a specialist, I think. And when you've got guys that are in that niche of a role, but having that niche be that important of a role, I think his per game numbers could surprise some people.
Yeah, and again, I'm just really excited to see him in his first role outside of the Miami Heat, and especially because it's playing for this team. It's playing next to Cade Cunningham. We saw what Cade did for Malik Beasley last year, and I think Duncan is another one of those candidates, and it'll only help players like that. Like Duncan probably isn't your long-term guy that's going to play next to Cade for the rest of his career. So it only makes players like that like want to come and play next to Cade Cunningham, because who wouldn't, honestly?
All right, this was bad podcast hosting on my part, because we're going to end and wrap up the show on a negative, talking about Duncan Robinson's floor. And the reason it's especially negative is because Duncan Robinson does have a year on his career where, yes, he was injured for part of it, but he did still play 42 games, about 17 minutes a night. This was just a couple of seasons ago in Miami. It was 6.4 points. It was 1.1 assists and 1.6 rebounds, and he shot 33% from three. Is that an outlier season? No question. Okay. If you throw that season and his rookie year out, he has not had a single year less than 37%. However, you have to recognize the outlier. So what's his floor?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I agree that season is an outlier. I think it was just a weird year with the contract stuff and everything. And he is sort of in a prove it year himself now, with only a very small amount of guaranteed money next year, in that very team friendly contract he gave to the Pistons, like we talked about before. But if he does see those like smaller minutes that we're talking about, that goes into just less looks, less opportunities, and everything like that. So I don't think it's going to dip that low to that outlier year. But if he doesn't shoot as good from three, if he gets less minutes and less attempts, like he could be somewhere around 8-2-2, and then from three, like I don't know. I just don't see him getting less than 5 3-point attempts per game, and then maybe he's just hitting those at a lower clip. Like maybe he is somewhere around 35, 36 compared to 37, 38, 39, like we've seen him for most of his career. But again, I just think playing next to Cade Cunningham, that's more of an unlikely outcome, although it is possible. He is getting older. He's playing for a new team. So you never know. But it is a possibility.
Yeah, and I mean, continuing on that same train of thought. So C brings it up here.
Yeah.
He asked, does anyone remember when Duncan was suddenly out of the Miami rotation a couple of years back? What happened there? I don't remember. That's the year that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? That was 22-23. And when I said he was injured that year, I'm not wrong. I'm correct. But it's technically correct because he also got himself removed by Spoelstra from the rotation as well when he was healthy for a portion of that year too. So the 42 games that he played that year, it's kind of a misleading number, right? Because yeah, he was hurt for part of it, but then also he kind of played himself out of minutes too. So, you know, and was that the injury? We don't really know, or at least I don't really know. And if you could find something, then obviously throw it in. But like, to me, it's just tough. He's such a good shooter, and you know he's going to get looks. If he ends up dropping down somewhere near the league average of like 36, 37% from three, and he's not shooting 8+ attempts a night, yeah, let's 7.5. Let's do 7.5 points and 36.5% from three. That could be maybe the beginning of the downward slide, right? If it's really an age thing, that's possible. It could also just be, sometimes guys in lower minutes, yeah, they're getting a lot of volume of threes, and you think that'd be enough, but you're also splitting that up with bench stints where they're a little bit longer than he's used to. Maybe that's an adjustment too. I don't know. I'm with you. I don't think that it's likely at all. I think a guy with his track record as a shooter and his track record as a shooter specifically off movement, even if he's down at like 38%, which would be a down year for him, I still think he's getting up close to 10 points a night. But I guess as like a absolute worst case scenario, yeah, 7.5 and 36 or so from three. But like you said, like not likely at all.
Yeah, and back to that down year, I'd have to go back, but it was a year after he signed that $90 million extension with the Heat. I'd have to go back to see if it kicked in the year before or it kicked in for this down season. But I remember that being a huge talking point when he was hurt and having this off
A
year.
lot of people
And
thought he had the contract blues.
yeah, and hopefully he stays off social media as much as he can, but I'd be shocked if some of that chatter didn't get to him, and I don't know how it affects a player because I've never been in that situation, but I can only imagine it certainly affects you. And when you're making that much money to be that big part of a team and you're not really improving to that, like his name has been in trade discussions really since that year, and he's improved to a degree since then, so it made it a little more palatable. But I think the whole contract was a big part of that as well.
Yeah, it was. And like when you say he improved, like, yeah, he brought his 3-point percentage back up close to 40 and he got his field goal percentage into the low 40s as well. Like he's a good player. He's a really good
Yeah.
player. I think he fits this roster extremely well. In terms of guys that were loosely available and could fill the same role that Malik Beasley or Tim Hardaway Jr. filled, I don't think the Pistons could have done any better than Duncan Robinson. So very happy with that. I would far more lean towards him hitting the ceiling that we talked about here than the floor.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, because of my bad hosting, we had to end the
Yeah.
show on a downer note. So that is my
We said
bad.
it's like
To all of
not
our
the
listeners.
likely outcome, so I think
Well, yeah,
that's
but now everyone who's listening is just thinking we're saying that because we don't want to end negative. Like, it's the implied narrative, right? That's more
yeah.
important than what's actually said.
No, I mean I genuinely am really excited to see him as a
Me too.
part of this team. And especially with the Malik Beasley situation that's still not resolved, that happened on the eve of free agency. Again, I think that's the most perfect player that you could have got to replace him. And then you go and get Karis LeVert too, who can help fill that role to a degree as well. So I mean, I'm still, and when you put the contract terms into the discussion too, it just like made all the sense in the world.
And look, like if anyone out there, if you're listening to this and you're still like on the fence about Duncan Robinson, stop thinking about Duncan Robinson as a like Malik Beasley replacement. Because I mean, Malik had a historic year last year. Think of him a little bit like a Tim Hardaway Jr. replacement. You're getting the kind of guy that I think that his shot diet, so to speak, is going to look much more Tim Hardaway Jr. than Malik. Because when Malik took the ball off the bounce, he was mid-range shots or it was fast break dunks, right? Well, Duncan Robinson can do that too. But when Duncan Robinson takes the ball off the bounce, it's more he's getting to the rim now and he's using his length and his craft to finish. And we saw a lot of that out of Tim Hardaway Jr. So, like, if you are imagining Duncan Robinson, you're on the fence. Imagine Tim Hardaway Jr., but 6'7". Like that's Duncan Robinson to me, and he's a better shooter. So I think we can all be excited. I'm right with C in the chat here, feeling optimistic. I'm right there. I think we should be excited about Duncan Robinson. And there we go. There's the positive note to end on for everybody out there.
I love it. Yeah, it's great. We're almost to the training camp starting, preseason, getting to the season, so we're almost there. And yeah, Mimsy with the 6'7" shout out. I see you there. But shout out to everyone who joined us today. It's a meme that the kids are talking about. It don't look it up. It's just complete brain rot.
Oh my god! All right. I didn't know I was this old.
No, yeah, I don't even know what it means. I don't think anyone really knows what it means, but it's definitely a meme, and I caught it too. So I'm happy someone else did. But again, shout out to everyone for joining. Reminder, you can call our number, ask a question, hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. Special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor for Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. If you haven't, head to Detroit Bad Boys, new website, really user-friendly. We might be using the new feed feature to have a more open discussion for questions and whatnot. So be sure to check that out, as well as just the regular post on the website. But shout out to you guys again for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you.